So teleporting from the point of view of potentially having your character jump from one world to another, like I'm going to show you, or having them jump from one part of the same world to another, or whatever it might be. So my cycle at the moment, if I go into this castle, teleports to here, and that's it really. I'm going to show you how I did it. So first thing to note is that the cycle that I've created is a creatable, which means that you can make it a character which can be created by something else in the game. So for example, if I were to add another style of rover, say, if I right click on my rover and go to change settings, and I scroll down and I get to creatable, if I select creatable and I come out of it and I run the game, he disappears. And the reason he disappears is because there's nothing in the game creating him at this point. And the same is true of this cycle. So let me get rid of the rover. Right, so this cycle is programmed, but his only programming really is to move forwards, keyboard, arrows, the usual thing. The rock behind him is what creates him in the game. So if I was to cut the rock and start the game, cycle disappears. Let's undo. Oh hello, he's come back again. Right, so the rock is programmed, and we're going to use a variable. And a variable in programming is basically a value that changes. It's variable, literally. So what we're going to do is we're going to set a score, and it's a score that we don't really necessarily need to worry about in terms of keeping track of our score. It's just basically a value. So when scored, A, which is in the world scores. So if I was to go into when scored world scores A, equals, so we go into compare and equals points and 0. So any game that you create in KODU, your starting point for all of your scores is always going to be 0. So basically, once the game starts, is what this effectively is saying, we're going to create a cycle, and we're going to do it once. And the reason it's selected once is because if I get rid of the once tile and I run the game, this happens, and eventually bad things go on, which we don't want, as funny as it is. So we're going to go back into that, and we're going to create, which is in no, it's not, it's in actions, create, cycle is in creatables, cycle, and then the once is here. So all that's going to happen is once the game starts, we're going to establish that the value of score A is 0, and therefore we're going to create the cycle. Which brings us to the castle. The castle is how we vanish the cycle. So if we right click on the castle and go to program, we can see that it says when bumped into the cycle. So when the cycle bumps into, when the two collide in some way, we're going to vanish, and the thing we're going to vanish is it, which is the cycle. If we could also change that to me, and if we did that and we ran the game, this would happen. That disappears. That's no use to us. So back into it and vanish it. Okay. So again, we've got another load of code here which we've indented so that it sort of becomes part of this same sort of function here. When we don't need, because it's going to happen next to this. So first of all, we're going to bump cycle and then vanish it. Then we're going to do this, and what we're going to do is we're going to change the score from being 0 points like it was to begin with, and we're going to change it to 2. That could just as easily actually be 1. So we're going to change the value of the score. Previously it was 0, now we're going to make it 1. So far so good. That establishes the creation of the cycle and the vanishing of the cycle, but we also need over here to recreate the cycle again. So if we right click on this rock, we have another set of code, and that code is saying that basically once the value of score A is equal to 2 points, we're then going to recreate the cycle. And again, there's a once at the end because, well, we all remember what happened when that wasn't there. Now this won't work, so while I demo it, see if you can figure out why that is. So we drive into the castle and disappears, no good. The reason it doesn't work, in case you haven't figured out in the last few seconds, is because we changed the value of the points from 2 back down to 1, because we've gone from 0 to 1, then need to go to 2. So what we need to do is go into this rock and change the settings from 2 points to 1 point. And so what should happen then is when we start controlling the cycle, he disappears and reappears over there. There you go. And that's how you do teleporting.